Hi guys, welcome back to a new video. So today is December 31st, which means it's the last day of the year. And I wanted to do like a reading wrapped and then also tell you my goals and all those things for 2025. So first, I read 10 books this year, which isn't great, but also I'm gonna look on that and be like, I'm so proud of that. 10 books is still a good amount for me to read. So I'm just gonna start by going through each one. Okay, so I started off the year with Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This was actually a DNF, which kind of sucked to start off the year with a DNF, but it was kind of more of a soft DNF. The writing just wasn't my favorite. The storylines I liked, and there was like 4 separate storylines, but basically this is about a cafe and the customers can travel back in time, but they have to be back before their coffee gets cold. There, I think, is now 5 books out in this series, and in this book at least, there are 4 different stories. It literally says, if you could go back, who would you want to meet? But the 4 stories in this, there's the lovers, husband and wife, the sisters, mother and child. I hope I do get back to this and I hope I like it, but at the time it just wasn't for me and I just wasn't really vibing with the writing style. But a lot of people like this. Then in February, I read 3.5 books in February. February was my best reading month, but those books were the first 3 books in the Percy Jackson series. I don't have the first one because my friend's borrowing it. I did read the entire series this year. So in February, I read the first 3 and then I started the 4th one. I completely, I got in a little bit of a slump and I also had to focus on school. But then I finished the 4th one during spring break. And then the 5th one, I didn't finish until the summer. But I have read the entire series, at least the first series. I know there's like 3 different series in the universe. I loved it. I started reading it because of the show. I wanted to read the first book before I watched season 1 of the show. But then I got really into them and I read the entire series. Yeah, if you don't know what Percy Jackson is, first of all, why do you not know? Do you live under a rock? But just kidding. If you don't know what it is, it's about this kid. He's like 12 and he finds out that he is a demigod and he's the son of Poseidon and he has to go on a quest. And I love Greek mythology so much. Like literally, I went to Greece this year. It was the best thing ever. Also, finishing Percy Jackson in Greece was just like oh my God. But I love Greek mythology, so I really enjoyed this series. I'm really excited to read the other series. But these were fast reads for me, especially like I said, the first 3 books I finished within a couple days. I think the first book took me about a week, the second book took me 3 days, and the third book took me 2 days. And then the 4th and 5th, that's another story. But I loved the series so much. And I'm in college, and even though these books are like for kids, I still really enjoyed them. And I think they are really for any age. My mom even loved, well, she liked the show. I guess she hasn't read the books, but she even loves the show. So yeah, I honestly think anyone at any age can read it. Wait, I just realized I haven't been telling you my star ratings. So obviously, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, DNF'd, soft DNF, but still DNF. The first book of Percy Jackson, I gave 5 stars because I was like, oh my God, that was so good. The second one, I think, was 4.5. The third one was 5 stars, and 4 and 5 are 4.5. My favorite book in the series is the third one. I also read it the fastest, literally 2 days. That series is so good. The series as a whole for me is also a 5-star series. And then after I finished Percy Jackson, I read Beach Read. I started reading Beach Read. Anyways, she's just gonna chill here for a bit. Beach Read, oh my God. I feel like everyone should read that book. If you like romance books, you will love Beach Read. So I started that book in August, and then again, classes started and I just wasn't really focusing on reading. But then I finished it. It was like end of November, I think. And that book was 5 stars for me. I don't have it with me, it's at my apartment, but I literally loved it so much. It was so much more than just a romance book. It was also just like a fiction book too. So basically the main character, January, her father passes away and he left her this lake house. And she moves in and she realizes that her neighbor is her college rival, Augustus Everett. He goes by Gus. And they kind of become friends and strike up a deal because they write completely opposite books, but they're both in kind of like a writing slump right now. So they decide to write books, like they swap book ideas almost. So January writes like a literary fiction book and Gus writes a romance novel. But as January is like writing this book, she also realizes more things about her family and stuff like that. So it's just more than the romance, which I love about that book, and I love it so much. I wish I had it. I annotated it and everything. I wish I could show you. But I keep telling my mom like she has to read that book, and I just think everyone should read it. But yeah, that book was 5 stars for me. And after I finished that book, end of November, in December this month, I read 2.5 books. So this was also a really good reading month for me. I started off with a book called Kiss Her Once for Me. That is kind of like a Christmas romance, and it's about this girl. She meets a stranger on Christmas Eve. They spend the day together, and then something happens and it didn't work out with the stranger. And then flash forward a year later, she works at a cafe, and the guy who owns the cafe, or like owns the building, he comes in and they end up like, he buys her a drink and they strike a deal to get married because Andrew, the guy who like owns the cafe building, he has to get married to inherit money from his grandfather, and it also will really help out the main character who has been struggling with money. So to convince his family, they go to this Christmas like cabin together, and it turns out that the stranger from last Christmas Eve is there. I actually rated this book, I think like 3 stars, but that is only because I was just comparing it to Beach Read. I think my problem was reading it right after Beach Read. So I just like kept comparing it to Beach Read, and I was like, this is not as good as Beach Read, but I need to not do that. And then for some reason, once I read that book, I read another romance book after that because I was really intrigued by the synopsis. And that book was In a Holidays by Christina Lauren, and it was Christina Lauren. I love Christina Lauren. If you don't know, there are 2 authors, Christina and Lauren. So I was like, okay, like another Christmas romance, maybe I'll like it better. This one was also 3 stars for me. Basically, it's about this girl, and they go to like this Christmas cabin house every year for a week over Christmas. And it picks up, the book actually picks up the day after Christmas, and they get this news, she's upset, they're leaving. And then as she's leaving, their car gets hit by a truck, and then she wakes up on the plane a week before. So basically she keeps traveling back in time and things keep happening. She keeps like dying, and she has to figure out why it's happening and what she can do to make the week better. So I was like, oh, I'm really intrigued. I've always loved books where like they keep reliving the same day or week. I think they're really interesting. But this one, I don't know. I think I just thought she would like keep resetting the week more, but it wasn't as much as I thought, and like that's the reason I was reading it, and I was like, oh. But it does have a good lesson in the book, and it's still a cute book like with romance and stuff. I just think I shouldn't have read romances after I read Beach Read. I think I needed like to read a fantasy or something. And because of that, I was like midway through this book and I was like, I just feel I need to read a fantasy. So I started Assassin's Blade. I finally started Throne of Glass series, like the Throne of Glass series. I decided to read this first. I was going back and forth for the longest time. Should I read it third or first? But I decided to do first. So this is a prequel to the Throne of Glass series, and it's kind of like a series of novellas. So I've read kind of like the first novella in it, and I'm on the second one, and I'm enjoying it right now. I think it is what I needed. But over the past couple days, I did decide to come back to this book, and I finished it last night actually. But yeah, I did end up rating it only 3 stars just because I just wasn't in the mood for romance. But this is helping, and I am liking it. I like the writing in this a lot. So yeah, I'm gonna read this series, and then I'll read ACOTAR. So I guess that was like 9.5 books, I think. This being the half, even though I'm not even really halfway through. 9.25, I guess. Okay, so I actually forgot 2 books. The first one, this was actually before the coffee gets cold. I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, tabbed it and everything. This book was beautiful. The writing was so good. I just like, it was so good. But it's about this girl who makes a deal with the devil because she wants to have like a free life. So she becomes immortal, but the problem is whenever she meets someone, the second they turn their head, they forget about her. They forget about her existence and everything. So she lives a very lonely life, and the book kind of goes from the past and then the present time. But in the present time, she goes into this bookstore and she meets a guy, and he remembers her. But this book is so good. It's definitely like a thought book, but it's so good. I love thought books. Like Circe, my favorite book. Yeah, this book, 5 stars. And then also in March, I think I read this. I read the 5th volume of Heartstopper, obviously in a day. It's a graphic novel, so. Also, the season, like the 3rd season came out this year, so Yay, I love Heartstopper. I'm so excited for volume 6, which I'm sad because I think it's the last one. I love them so much. I have a whole area for Heartstopper on my bookshelf. Okay, so that was actually like 11 books, I think. But technically I didn't read all of this in January because I started it last November, but I finished it this year, so I'm gonna count it. Okay, now for the award for the best book of 2024. Drum roll. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This book was so good and just so beautiful. The ending made me sad, but also I liked it. I don't know, like I was like, it was so good. I think if you love books that make you think and like just books that are like kind of those like beautiful writing, then read this book. Okay, I'm gonna pull up my story graph and then we can look at my 2024 reading wrapped. Here it is, 2024 reading wrapped. Okay, so it says I finished 10 books. First book that I read, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. The last book that I read, In a Holidays. Here is my mood map. So basically the higher up the line, the higher, like the lighter the books are. So I guess I read pretty lighter books, but the beginning dropped a little bit because of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. It's not really light. It's not really a light book. But I guess everything else that I read was, so. I also read 3,665 pages. I read the most amount of books and pages in February. My most read genre was fantasy, but that's because Percy Jackson. The longest book I read was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and that was 442 pages. And the shortest book was the second book in the Percy Jackson series, The Sea of Monsters. That was 279 pages. My average length of books was 355 pages. The average amount of days it took me to finish each book was 37 days, which I think is pretty good for me. The least time I read was Titan's Curse, like the shortest amount of time it took me to read it. And then the longest amount of time it took me to read a book was Beach Read. Beach Read took me 125 days. Oops. My most read author was Rick Riordan, who wrote the Percy Jackson series. My average rating was 4.19 stars, which is pretty good. My 5-star reads this year was Addie LaRue, first book Percy Jackson, third book Percy Jackson, and Beach Read. The most rating that I used was 4.5 stars. February was my best month, with the average rating being 5 stars. The most popular book that I read this month was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And the least popular book that I read this month was Kiss Her Once for Me. And the highest rated book that I read this month was The Last Olympian, which is the last book in the Percy Jackson series, which was really good. Honestly, that book is more of a 4.75 stars for me. 6 of the books that I read this year was part of a series. I DNF'd 1 book this year, Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I read 5 books this year that I already purchased and I didn't have to buy. Percy Jackson though, I had to buy all of them. But yeah, here's like my 2024 at a glance. All the books that I got to, not including my DNF and my half-read book, Assassin's Blade. But yeah, I'm actually really happy. Even though I wanted to read a lot more this year, I'm happy with what I read because the books that I did read were, for the most part, pretty good. Okay, now on to my 2025 goals. So my main reading goal, I want to read 30 books this year. I know I only read 10 this year, but I haven't really been in a slump like this month. I have really been wanting to read. Hopefully that carries over, but that's like 2.5 books per month, which I did that this month and it was really easy for me. So I'm gonna do 30 books. Last year's goal was 20. Didn't beat it, but it's okay. It's okay. But this year I am, even though I didn't even meet it, I'm gonna make it more. 30 books. Because I have so many that I want to read and I'm so excited to get to this in 2025. Will I? We'll see. I hope I do. Some smaller goals, I want to read 3 Greek mythology books, like rewritten stories. Up here, that's my Greek mythology shelf. There are about 4 or 5 books on that shelf that I haven't read, and I hope to get to them. I love Greek mythology retellings. Like I said, Circe's my favorite book ever, and I love Song of Achilles. Madeline Miller needs to write more books. I know that I think she's working on, was it Psyche and Eros retelling? I don't know actually, but I know that she got like long-term COVID, so like, I'm sorry, queen, but you could please write more books, that would be great, but like no pressure, like you don't have to. I just love you, and I love your books and your writing, thank you. But maybe I'll find other Greek mythology authors. That's why I want to read more, because I love them so much. So what did I say? Did I say 3 books? Did I say 3 or 4? I don't know, but whatever I said, that's my goal. I also have this whole shelf is like kind of Disney books and Disney retellings. So 3 of those too. All of these are a series. Well, interconnected standalones. You don't have to read them in order or anything. But they're actually really cool because, like, for example, this one's the Brave one. They're all what if scenarios. So this one, what if the witch gave Merida a different spell? I have read the Tangled one. I gave it 3.5, I think. Just because I thought a lot of the bigger scenes would still be in it. But this one is what if Rapunzel's mother drank a potion from the wrong flower. So instead of being like the sunflower, it was the moonflower, and she had silver hair and she had different powers. And it was really cool. And I liked it, and there was new characters and stuff. But my issue with this one, there wasn't a lantern scene. So I was just really upset. But going forward, I'm not going to expect, I think it's because like you don't want to rewrite the things that already have been written. I think that's the like what the authors are doing, but I just really wanted the lantern scene. Even if it's like not in a boat, like something with the lanterns, but that did not happen. But it's okay, it's okay. But going forward in this series, I'm not expecting anything to be the same because I don't want to be disappointed like I was with this one. If I wasn't expecting, then I would have probably rated this higher. So if you want to read the series, I like it. Good series. Well, other people say it's a good series. I read Ren book. I like the writing and stuff, but don't expect the same things to be in it. And maybe you're probably like, well, duh. Well, I didn't know. Okay? I didn't know. So 3 books on this shelf. Another goal that I have for myself is to finish a series that I'm reading. So I did just start Throne of Glass series. No, don't think I'm gonna finish that one, but Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, I can finish that one. Red Queen series, I can finish that one. This series that is modern retellings of fairy tales, I can finish this series. Atlas 6, I can finish that series. So just any of those, hopefully I finish one. Not expecting me to finish Throne of Glass though, because that's like, what, 8 books? Don't expect that to happen. Once I finish Throne of Glass though, don't you worry, ACOTAR. Although I've heard people say ACOTAR is worse than Throne of Glass, even though she wrote it after Throne of Glass, which is sad, but also it's still really good, I've heard. I don't know. Okay, those are my main reading goals for 2025. Oh, also another one, read more books than I buy. I really gotta work on that one. Like, look at this. This is kind of crazy. I haven't read most of these. Well, I haven't read half of them, so yeah, it's an issue. Especially 2021, 2022. It was really, really bad. Like, it got really, really bad. Most of these books I bought 2021, 2022. And then 2023, 2020. Like, this month, or this year especially, I've been really good. And the books that I did buy, I read. Like Percy Jackson, I just kept buying those because I wanted to keep reading the series. And I read them. So, I'm gonna read more books than I buy. Or if I do buy a book, hopefully I get to it that, like, in 2025. Okay, those were all my goals. Now I'm gonna go to my highest priority books of 2025. First up, obviously, gotta finish Assassin's Blade because I'm in the middle of it. I have to finish it. And hopefully Throne of Glass, like the first book. I'm just gonna give myself the first 2 books of that series because I'm really bad at reading series in a row, except Percy Jackson. But I'm really bad at reading all of them in a row. So I skip around a lot, you know, to give myself palette cleansers or just new genres or just something new. But I'm definitely finishing this book. Next up, we have Shatter Me. I will read this. I will. And I'm going to read it in January. Reading my January TBR. Why not? These 2 books and then one more. Magnolia Parks. I started this in February, and then I started reading Percy Jackson and completely forgot I was reading this. I haven't touched it since. But I really, really liked the part that I read. The writing is beautiful. It's amazing. I have every single book in the series. I have to read it. I have to finish it, and I will. I will read this in January. Just you wait. So those can be my 3 books in January. Even 2.5. Like, if I only get halfway through this, that's okay as long as I finish it in February. But yeah, I am going to be starting this book over. That's okay. I also really want to get to Fourth Wing. I have that book in my apartment. Hopefully I can get to it. Everyone says it's amazing, but then everyone says the second book sucks. But the third one is coming out in January. I don't know. I'll see what people say about the third one. If people say that that one also sucks, then I'm gonna stop reading the series at the first book. and just like look up what happens in the second and third. But if people say that the third one is really good and the series just has like second book, what's that thing? It's like second in a trilogy, it's like the second book always sucks, or the book in the middle always sucks. Like Shadow and Bone, I know that series has that issue, but hopefully it ends well. Anyways, sorry, I got a little sidetracked. Fourth Wing, I will get to it. Don't even worry. Next book, Caraval. I know it's good. Or not, maybe Once Upon a Broken Heart. I know that's good. I really want to read this though. It looks really interesting, and I gotta get to it. And people say it's good, so hopefully they're not lying. And the last one I'm gonna put on this list is The 7-Year Slip. Oh wait, I have 2 more on this list actually, I lied. Like this one and another one. I just recently decided that I really want to read this book because it's a romance book with like some magical realism, I think. I love me some magical realism. I love it. I don't know, people say that this book is really good and her other books aren't as good, but this one is really good. And it's short. How many pages is this? Oh, it's 326. Why does it look shorter than that? I don't know, but I'm excited for this one. And I like the cover. The last one that I have on this list is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I bought this last year, I think, 2023, and I was like, oh, everyone says it's so good. I haven't read it. Guys, I like have this problem, but we're gonna get out of that habit. 2025 is the year to get out of this habit. But I'm excited because people say that her writing is really good, and especially her most recent book is the best, but it's like the 3rd book in this series. I think they're interconnected standalones, so hopefully. So I am gonna get to this in 2025. But yeah, here are my top priority books for next year. What were my top priority books last year? I don't even know. I think Beach Read was on it. I think everything else that was on it I didn't read. But that's just because of Percy Jackson. Like, I got really into it. But I promise I'll read at least one of these, so don't worry. Okay, now for the final section of this video, my most anticipated releases in 2025. First up, we have Onyx Storm. Have I read the rest of the series? No, I haven't touched the series, but I'm just really curious whether the 3rd book is going to be as good as the first one or as bad as the second one, from what people are saying. Maybe I'll love the second one, but probably not, because most of the people that have the same book taste as me, they didn't like the second one. Loved the first one, hated the second one. That's a lot of people's opinions. But I'm just really curious, like, will I only read the first book in that series and look up a summary for the other 2 books, or will I read the entire series? Like, we will see. Next up, we have Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Beach Read was just so good. I'm so excited to read all of her other books. Oh, I forgot! People We Meet on Vacation is on my top priorities. Okay, anyways, I'm just so excited. Even if I don't read it next year, I'm just so excited for another one of her books to be out into the world. She's become like my favorite romance author, and I've literally only read 1 book by her. Like, this next one, Sunrise on the Reaping. I'm so excited. I am so excited. Hamish's book, like, and the movie is gonna be so good, hopefully. Isn't Mike Feist playing Hamish? So the next one, Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. Again, have I read a single book by her? No, but I'm excited to see people saying that it's really good, because I know it will be good, because I don't know, I just have this feeling in my heart. The 3rd book in the Emily Wilde series, I'm so excited. I love cozy fantasy, and that series is cozy fantasy, and like the 3rd book's coming out. I don't know if that's the final book in the series or not, but hey, like, I'm just excited for there to be another book in the series. And then we have Oathbound. That is the 3rd and I think final book in the Legendborn series. I'm really excited for that. I think the 2nd book came out like almost 2 years ago. Yeah, and the 2nd book doesn't have bad second book syndrome. Like, and if the 2nd book in a trilogy is good, you know it's gonna be a good trilogy. And the last one is Bury Our Bones in the Night in the Midnight Soil. I just read that so wrong. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I was like, that does not sound right. But that's by V.E. Schwab. Obviously, I just talked about The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. That was also by V.E. Schwab. I'm sad by anything she's read, even though I've only read 1 book. Her writing is just so good. It's so good. And her brain, like, I just know. Her brain is a good one. It's a good one. If I was a zombie, I'd eat her brain. Just A disclaimer, any of these books on this list, that does not mean I'm reading it in 2025. It just means I'm excited for it to be out into the world so that I can read it eventually. Thank you. Okay, that is everything that I wanted to get through in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I love talking about books, so this was really fun to create. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!